Hi, welcome back to Cambridge InsideOut. I'm Judy Nathans.
And I'm still Robert Winters.
And we're going to continue.
Let's sort of get back right to the heart of our big midsummer city council meeting. So it was mentioned just before the break that so the next big item is the Volpe, MIT Volpe zoning petition. That was barely present on the agenda last night, except for the fact that there was, it had been made subject, the petition itself had been made subject to the charter right at the meeting in June by Councilor Mazin. But it was pointed out that in fact it was a meaningless charter right because state law overrules this and basically says it has to get referred to planning board and ordinance committee regardless of the charter right. So in fact, in the time between June 26th and last night's meeting, there had already been one hearing at the planning board and one at the ordinance committee on the Volpe.
Which was last week.
Right.
And they're going to have another community meeting. Do you have the date on that? It's in September.
It's in September. MIT
has been doing a lot of
the
this.
real estate group, they have actually been doing a lot of public outreach.
Yeah.
And there'll be some more, charrettes and things about what people really want. In terms of community benefits, and to some degree actually a little bit about the layout of the site, but that's not really been subject to much public input yet. It will be.
We'll let you know next week.
So I was at the meeting and at the ordinance committee meeting, chose not to speak because I had to go elsewhere and they couldn't wait. The public comment oftentimes gets pushed to the very end, unlike the city council meetings where they load it up front. One thing that did happen at the meeting is Councilor Toomey really emphasized the importance of the Grand Junction Railroad Corridor in his decision as part of this.
He didn't hear any mention of that at all.
Right. But it needs to be stated here with clarity. That
Can we show where that is?
I don't know if I have a map here so much about it here, but I just want to say is that the Volpe site, which we sort of focused on last week, the Volpe site is actually not really adjacent to or even connected to the Grand Junction Railroad at all. And the MIT Volpe petition has nothing to do with the Grand Junction Railroad Corridor. But it's kind of standard practice with big zoning petitions that you leverage certain community benefits, whether they be scholarships for kids or just putting money in a community benefits fund or whatever. So it seems pretty clear that Councilor Toomey and apparently Dennis Carlone, one of the co-chairs of the ordinance committee as well, emphasized that he last night at the council meeting that he felt that some kind of concession from this MIT, or let's not call it concession,
but just
to
work with
that, basically see if they can use the MIT request for the zoning here to leverage some additional benefit for the community for the Grand Junction Railroad Corridor, which maybe is a little stalled. I don't know.
It would help.
I think it would help. It might help them, but it is sort of basically a couple of blocks away. But the thing is it's what you do. You it's a little. Maybe I shouldn't use the word shakedown, but what happens with
it's a negotiation.
It's a negotiation for community benefits. But the thing is that in order to get the job done, sometimes there's a memorandum of understanding.
I'm glad you said that because when he said in an MOU last night, I said, wait a minute, what is that?
So Councilor Carlone made clear he really thought that should be part of any memorandum of understanding that is okay in sync with the zoning. And we don't know whether the votes are there to approve the MIT Volpe zoning petition.
Really?
We don't know that yet. It's going to be close either way because remember, the expiration date is 1 week before election day, and if people decide that it's going to help them or hurt them to vote one way or the other, that could really swing things. And I've seen pre-election votes go do some really crazy things, quite honestly.
Yeah, but I think that it's just not. It's not very neighborly. I think because they have to get. It's going to already be as a 10 to 15 year process.
Right, just in the development of it.
Just the development. I mean,
but for years we've been looking forward to there being some movement on that. So now it's happening.
So why stop it?
Had I had the opportunity to speak at that,
what would you have said?
I would have said, "Dear city councilors, please don't blow it." the thing is this is really should be viewed as an opportunity.
Yeah.
You know,
And it's MIT. No matter, they belong here. They're not going
daily
anywhere.
meetings if necessary, but hash
Right.
this out.
It could have been an outside developer that got it.
This was actually the best possible outcome in
right.
terms of the developer.
Right.
So make the best of it and get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's fair to load it all up on Councilor Carlone, but he's got a good professional background that really, really, really could be helpful here. And I hope
I think he's one of the few on the council that really has that. They're the only one, really.
this is his special
I
talent.
know. And
honestly,
there's so much going on with this that his voice
I really,
needs to
really
be.
hope he takes a lead role in getting this job done and done right. So, we'll see how it shakes out. I mean, there are going to be, room for a person or two to vote no, the symbolic no, so that the people who are opposed to anything can rally around and vote for them.
I didn't get a sense from the, I listened to the whole, that it was that
I've seen it.
controversial.
The thing is, I've just seen it happen.
Wow.
Well, one councilor I was speaking to last week said, honestly, I just don't see how this is going to get happen. I thought, really?
At all?
No, I think it will happen, but honestly...
Well, Toomey did say if the grand which it doesn't, no, wait, maybe I'm confusing the quadrangle and Craig Kelly. 'Cause he said there's no bridge,
anyway,
no vote.
So,
anyway, we'll see.
So the thing is sometimes you just play hardball, it's political hardball. You say, there's no way I'm going to vote for this.
Yeah.
But then in the end,
so
you do.
is this going to come up at the 11th, the first meeting of the...
this is really going to be the central theme.
Because it has to because of the time
the rest of the
thing?
time
Okay.
until now, till November. Right.
But anyway, it is September 7th is the community meeting again within
MIT
MIT's
will
presenting.
do
So
another
just go on their site or just, you'll find it out.
Now another ordinance that the city council actually did pass last night was this one that's sort of been brewing for a while, having to do with banning the sale of I'm going to get this all wrong,
Wait,
but
I
basically,
missed this one. What?
well, it's like the pet shop ordinance.
Oh, that,
right?
yeah,
So if I understand this correctly, there's certain animals
that they don't want to
that
be
are come from breeders,
okay.
and they just banned them outright. So they're basically saying the only animals you can buy at these pet shops are ones that are rescue animals.
Really?
Something's words to that
Now,
effect.
I did not read the letters that were submitted by Petco, so did you happen to look at those?
I did look at them, but I couldn't really.
People kind of, I guess,
give
put them
detail.
down and said it's a
They-
corporate thing, but I don't know
Right.
what they said, but they
Lines were
clearly
being
don't,
drawn.
they're a commercial enterprise.
Yeah, I don't know how this is really going to work out. I don't know whether they were saying, well, this could result in the
Don't they sell
closing of
lizards?
stores.
Do you have rescue lizards?
I think they're included.
No.
They're rescue
No, seriously,
lizards.
come on, they sell,
I know.
there's
rescue
no such
fish.
thing, there's rescue
Yeah.
cats and dogs.
There are some exceptions here, but just to be
Oh,
funny.
there
right?
are, all right, well,
Like,
I'll have to look
is
at it,
that-
because I
is
haven't
that-
paid any
Is that-
attention.
Is that dwarf gourami a rescued gourami?
No, seriously,
I
I
don't know
just,
if I can buy that.
all right, I will do my homework and I'll
All
look
right.
at the actual
But anyway,
language.
so they did ordain it 8-1. Councilor Marr cast a no vote.
Oh, okay.
And so that's going to go into effect at some point. I forget and when it goes into effect. But
Okay,
of course, what really sometimes happens is that if in fact you just want the cutest little puppy in the world,
Yeah.
and it's not necessarily a rescue dog, you just go into Watertown or you go in someplace else, right?
go to the
Or you go
Angel
to a
Memorial.
private breeder.
Well,
You'll find a way, So, it's like if people want to buy pets, they're going to buy pets. And so honestly,
yeah,
I just didn't get
and
this.
Petco sells a lot of other things for pets.
Right. Oh yeah. So it's a
Yeah.
supply. So it's but
Yeah,
so the actual if you want to get the
I mean,
animals themselves.
I'm not a pet person,
Yeah.
so it just
Yeah.
didn't
I'm
interest
not,
me.
as a former owner of boa constrictor and a black
Ooh.
rat snake, but we had
Ooh.
to buy mice to feed it.
Oh,
I don't know that I can
Yeah.
do that in Cambridge anymore because
No.
unless they're rescue mice.
or lab mice.
Or lab mice. So.
Oh.
Anyway, I guess enough on that. But anyway, that was sort of one piece of the
Okay,
puzzle there.
we're gonna get to the bicycle stuff.
Yeah, actually, let me just say just one quick thing. Which is I think it's fair to say it has been a theme for a while, and it will continue to be a theme in the upcoming city council election. Is things that are kind of related to Trump administration policies. So.
Oh, yeah, what was that
sanctuary
about the
cities.
constitutional amendment or something?
Well, that was another matter. The thing
Oh,
is
okay,
that
what are you
there's
the immigration, yeah.
Right. So there are two of these things that largely could be called sort of federal scale things.
Yeah.
One is there's this ongoing threat that because the Trump administration is really kind of bothered about sanctuary cities, which is in my opinion is a pretty benign thing.
Yeah.
But it's symbolic. They're trying to make it out as a big deal. So what would happen if if Cambridge was denied federal funds somehow because of its status as a sanctuary city? So there was an order calling on establishing a fund to make sure that we would make up the difference.
There was federal funds only for law enforcement. That's what Sessions said yesterday about Chicago.
Yeah.
I don't know if they could say in general federal
I think
funds.
that's really right. I think could they cut off housing funds
I don't think
because
so.
they don't like our politics?
I think only directed towards law enforcement.
I think that's really the truth.
Yeah.
But anyway, so there was some council orders that dealt with that. Also, another council order.
Did they get voted on or filed? I mean, they didn't get...
These are not action items. One is to establish a public fund. I think that did get approved, but it doesn't mean it'll happen.
Okay.
But basically, you're asked the city manager to, see if that's doable. There's also was a call on Governor Charlie Baker to, kind of put up or shut up on this issue as well.
Yeah.
Right.
People were down on him. Yeah.
Now, arguably, the what became, when the agenda showed up last Thursday, it had an order from it was from Mayor Simmons, Councilor Marn, and Councilor Toomey. I think they grew out of a response to some calls about the two-way bicycle lanes that were installed in Brattle Street.
Is that the only two-way bicycle lane?
There are counterflow lanes on a few regular city streets, but this is the only sort of two-way one.
Okay.
Actually, I think it's probably fair to say that the Paul Dudley White path along Memorial Drive is two-way.
Right, but there's no cars right next to you.
Right. Well, I mean, the thing is, this is sort of an artificial way of
but it's
doing that. I mean, you do have intersections.
Brattle's a one-way street, so it is a different kind of mindset to know there's traffic coming actually the other way on a bike.
Yeah. So apparently, not a lot of warning was given. They just basically the public works people or contractors just came by kind of overnight. Yeah,
that was a big,
put up some
big
traffic
mistake.
cones, said do this. So I think they kind of messed up that way.
Real big time. I can't believe it's not like them to. I mean, let the business owners know a flyer or something.
Personally, I think this is really because there's a big rush to do things because these are largely politically driven things. They're not sort of the end result of a long engineering.
Right, but somebody actually brought up, one of the commenters who was for it, but brought up about contractors and having to work on their schedule, and that was sort of made sense a little bit.
Right, but you still have to.
You still go around by hand and just knock on the door.
Vice Mayor McGovern pointed out that when they were going to do an electrical outage, they put little orange door hangers on
we got one about a week ago.
Just to warn people what's happening, right? But none of that really happened apparently. So the council order was actually pretty benign. It just sort of said, well, for anything else that's happening, we should have a
meeting and then 30 days from that a report.
Meetings and just basically what do you say, right? So that got cast as somehow a call for a moratorium on all new bicycle infrastructure.
Including Cambridge Street.
It was a really unfair characterization, but it sort of lit up the fire alarms. And, many people, cyclists, who are on the list for the Boston Cyclists Union.
Speed dial, anytime bicycle.
Oh boy, yeah.
Facility agenda.
So they all just sort of showed up, packed the meeting to the point where nobody else could even get in.
Yeah.
And it was all based on a lot of misinformation, which I kind of resent, honestly.
Yeah.
So in the end, Mayor Simmons put in some substitute language, and even that was trimmed down to a simple ordered. And I'm not even going to give the particular details of it, but I was more interested in sort of the whole phenomenon of it.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, in all the years I've lived in Cambridge, the notion that somehow public process, when there's a change coming, that people should be outraged by a call to have public process is very un-Cambridge. Anything Cambridge tends to do a lot more public outreach and public process for decisions than most any other place. So this is really a very weird new world we're entering. Anyway, it was a big crowd, and who knows where we go from here. So.
Well, there's plans for different streets, right?
There are plans for different streets, like Cambridge Street. They talk about other corridors. I have a bit of a problem with some of this because, if you look over the years, there were times when there were persons installing just bicycle lanes, period, right? On-street bicycle lanes. There were other times when they were installing what they call just guidelines, which basically says cars to this side, park cars to that side, to kind of push out a little space for cyclists. It's a relatively recent thing, really just a year old. I've never heard of a pop-up lane, but it sort of has become sort of the, pop-up lanes and segregated cycling facilities or nothing. It's like take it or leave it. Whereas in fact there are a lot of streets, like my street, for example, I think, where there are
Broadway.
Places where there are daycare facilities and schools and whatever, where in fact curb access for motor vehicles and buses matters.
It matters in a lot of Cambridge.
Yes,
there's a lot of businesses and there's a lot of drop off and
But so what you have is an organized lobby here saying, sorry, all of those considerations should be just forgotten and set aside because we want this little piece of turf.
The city did not do their homework. I forget, it was either Chung or somebody brought it up that they should have looked at how many trucks get delivered, how many is this, how is this going to impact?
And I don't think the city councilors were doing much homework either. They basically were responding.
They handed it over though to the traffic department,
who were basically saying, well, we got to do this because
I know,
because the councilors say we have to.
But ultimately, whose job is that? Is it the community development to do the study?
Honestly, I just really wish we could all just take a big step back because and like I say something else, like an elderly person or a person who has to make deliveries, they're not going to have a big phone chain or an email list that's going to drive and bring 100 people out to a meeting. So basically you have a loud group who
mostly young
people who just pile into a meeting and say, this is the view, this is the only view.
But there were other people there that did speak for Beverly Meyer, who's on the board here. So this is really sort of like trying to just sort of win an argument. Change is hard, but we need to cooperate and
you have to find some compromises. And in my view, the best solutions would be ones where certain roads will actually be sort of a cobbled together combination of different treatments.
Right.
And
they can't all be the same. They can't be treated the same. And I think in business areas, I wouldn't be, totally against not having parking in certain places because it's very hard to park right in Harvard Square. Let's face it, so. Maybe you'd park further out and then take something, or walk.
Even if they took all the segregated facilities off the table, I could point out some specific places. Primarily where roads make turns, where visibility is somewhat compromised, where removal of parking would actually make tremendous sense for improved bicycle safety. Right. I'm absolutely not sold on this sort of this one size fits all approach that's now being pushed, But anyway, it was noteworthy because it's really what drew a tremendous number of people out at the meeting, even if half of them didn't live in Cambridge, honestly.
But that's not fair because they bike through Cambridge to get to their jobs in Longwood or downtown, so they are using the streets. It's not just Cambridge people biking.
I agree, but the thing is that because you have a much larger catchment area of people who are then going to show up to dominate.
Oh, I know. Well, hopefully councilors and people realize that. Okay.
Right. So I hope they do. I'm not convinced. I'm really not. But anyway, that was a really big piece of it all. Now, there were a few other items that are on the agenda that I don't know if they necessarily got a lot of talk, but worth mentioning. So there were 2 orders basically calling for a little bit more of a push and a plan for the city to go to the next phase in establishing municipal broadband.
Oh, right.
Now, honestly, I don't know where that's going. I know there are some activists who are really pushing hard for it and are not going to take no for an answer. But they might get no for an answer because the costs associated with rolling out city-sponsored municipal broadband could be really, really high. And as I also like to point out, technology changes, and by the time you build your network out, you might, I don't know that it'd be obsolete, but it may not be what people are necessarily wanting. So there's a lot of financial exposure in addition to just the money you spend up front. So it's not the type of thing I think the city management has ever really embraced to do things like that. If anything, like when we separated off the Cambridge Health Alliance, it was that was great because it reduced financial exposure for this city, kind of ensured good bond rating because we didn't have this really risky investment involved. So I think there's some reasons to be a little questionable, even if there are some potentially really great benefits, about municipal broadband.
CCTV would be in some trouble maybe.
Well,
they rely on Comcast for a lot of
depends on how you do.
revenues.
You'd have to do something where you'd have to recreate another revenue stream.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they could work together, maybe have reduced rates for people.
What cooperation? What a concept.
No, I mean with Comcast in the city, but.
Yeah, but a lot of times these are battles that are just sort of fought rather than negotiated.
Actually, I don't know. I have to look into this whether other cities have municipal broadband.
Right.
You don't know that, do you?
Probably are some. I think there are some around the country. Well, in fact, there's some really interesting ways they were done. At least one instance I know of where they actually ran cable through sewers. Honestly, there's no reason why you can't.
But they get wet. I thought you could.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. There are transatlantic cables that have been running underneath the ocean for over 100 years.
Well, isn't the city putting down cable every time they dig up the streets?
They're putting in conduit.
They're putting a conduit
to facilitate the future infrastructure, communication infrastructure.
Well, at least they're doing that.
That's
that
exactly
is really
what you
important.
should do.
Right. Okay.
That's really true. Now, one other item that was mentioned, but I really don't think there's going to be a good resolution. There was a while back about changes with the license commission regarding liquor licenses. And so there was an order from councilors Mazin, Devereaux, and McGovern asking for an update and how the plan to address the concerns regarding the sale of liquor licenses, because if you basically if the so-called no value licenses can be traded just like regular liquor licenses, if you were basically thinking you could retire on the value and the sale of your
it's like the taxi
liquor license, it's very similar to what happened with the taxi cab medallions where the prices plummeted.
So where's that going to go? Nowhere, or the city's not going to pay money towards that, or
the city solicitor has to get in on this. But there are real problems with anti-aid amendments. You can't
just give out money for the city to pay. Yeah,
I don't know that this is going to have a good resolution. But it's worth noting that people are at least looking into it. Now, another item. I'll do one quickly. There were some things about open meeting law violations from Mr. Hawkinson, which pretty much the word come back from the various agencies saying, sorry, there was no violation, go away, right? But the number 3 on the list of the communications and reports from city officers was from the Election Commission, because there was a proposal for a petition to put a ballot question on the ballot this November. Now, it had a lot sort of slightly inflammatory language in the preamble, but basically it says, do you support, and this is non-binding, just an advisory question, which is basically supporting financing for municipal election campaigns. Right. Obviously, we already fund the elections, but it would be for the campaigns, right?
The public finance of campaigns.
And I think there's some interesting arguments you can make for and against these things here.
I'd say that was the third most public commented topic.
I think that's fair to say. And this was the last opportunity to actually pass it, because there are deadlines for ballot questions. Right. And in fact, it was made subject to the charter right by Councilor Chung. So consequently, it's not going to be on the ballot unless the petitioners go out and collect valid signatures from 10% of registered voters, which would be about 6,500 signatures. Maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't.
Then those have to be validated by the election
commission. You got to go through validation. So, if they were validating 50 signatures per council candidate, this is a bit of a stiffer task. Yeah. But they've done it before. Yeah. There were ballot questions having to do with various things. They have to do the same thing even with state ballot questions, so they're pretty good at it.
Right. I can't remember the last city ballot question.
I remember one about food policy some long time ago. So it's happened though. Yeah. But anyway, it was a big thing, and so it was made subject to the charter right. So you might think, well, that was the end of it, right? But at the very last minute, so the meeting got extended. It normally
Kept
it
getting
ends at
extended by
midnight.
15 minutes.
So they extended it to 12:15, then
And then
12:30, then 12:45. So maybe close to about 12:40.
Yeah.
Council Mazin comes in and he wants to put in a late order calling for the scheduling of a
The
special
emergency,
meeting
called an emergency,
because this is an emergency.
or based language, I guess you can use emergency.
Yeah, you're right.
To
right.
override Rule 19 or something?
Right, which is a council rule, but the truth is, as the city clerk correctly pointed out,
Right.
the issue isn't so much the council rules, which you
Right.
can suspend in a heartbeat, all but one, which is the charter right. That's because that's part of state law. But the open meeting law
Right,
is
you have to
also
have
part of
post,
state law,
48 hours
and it
notice.
requires 48 hours notice. So
Yeah.
we're already into Tuesday morning when he spoke. So
And they
by the
needed to
time
be Wednesday, no, it wouldn't even be
the
right,
first
yeah.
time you could meet, you could have a meeting and meet the provisions of the state open
Yeah.
meeting law would have been Thursday and it would be
That'd
past
be
the
too
deadline.
late, right.
You know, but they tried to do it and they were still debating it and they were gonna try and put a vote and say, well, we're gonna
But
vote
then
on this.
you said adjourned.
Right, so we're gonna vote on this here anyway, and then if the city solicitor says we can't do it, then we won't do it, you know, it was very.
Did you get voted on?
You know, the way I look at it is that since this was a late order, Councilor Chung, if he was there, could have just as I charter write that late order, he could have done that, so
Oh,
he
he
must have
didn't.
gone home to his babies,
Uh-huh.
right? That's my supposition. But anyway, what happened then is they were just talking and
Yeah.
talking and talking
Then
about it,
12:45.
and Mayor Simmons
Yeah.
says, well,
Meeting's
the
adjourned.
the time of the meeting having expired, the meeting is now adjourned, and that was the end of it.
I did hear Nadeem go by her and says, well, thank you for trying. He did say
Right.
that, so, you know.
But he might have been trying to be facetious. I'm not
No,
sure.
it didn't sound like that,
Really?
no.
Anyway, so that was the end of that, and
Yeah.
but we see they may actually appear on the ballot if they do the signature route, or it'll just become a subject that people will talk about
Yeah.
Next year, which I think is probably the best outcome anyway.
Yeah,
So.
better language.
Yeah, really take out the inflammatory stuff.
Right.
So, anyway, we're just pretty much out of time.
Okay.
So we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
At least one of us.
Yeah,
So you
I
can
might be
figure
here,
this
might
out.
not, or some guest.